Let's be real, Rocket League has a lot of mechanics. I feel like every single day I get a new message from someone on Twitter claiming to have invented a new flick. Unfortunately, these so-called new mechanics never get traction because, let's be honest, this is just a worse version of a normal flick. You can't just mess up a flick and put your name on it and say it's yours. But on the other hand, there definitely are some good mechanics that have been discovered over the years. So today, just like I did with every rank in Rocket League, I'm putting 20 different mechanics in a tier list so we can truly figure out which mechanics are top tier. And as always, I'm ranking these based purely on whatever mechanics I like the best, which means this entire list is indisputable fact. To start it off, we've got air dribbles. If you guys know me, you know air dribbles are a big part of my skill set. I'll be honest, I don't really follow my own advice when it comes to training methods. When I go into free play, I usually just mess around and have fun. And for me, that means going for air dribbles and wall setups over and over again. This obviously causes my skill set as a whole to take a hit, but my air dribbles are abnormally above average compared to everything else. So because of that, I actually love going for air dribbles in game. So I'm going to put this one in S tier to start it off.
That's amazing.
Okay, there's one person in the world that I think of when I think of drift dribbles, and that of course is Evampel. If you guys have seen his gameplay before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't even imagine what it's like to have that amount of control. I can do little drift dribbles like this competitively, but the thing about this mechanic is that it's practically impossible to get an insane drift dribble on accident. So because it's really cool, but also really tilting when you lose control halfway through one in a real game, I'll put this at B tier. Flip resets are probably the most glorified mechanic in Rocket League. I can't think of a single mechanic that's even more looked up to. Sure, a 180 wave dash flick might be like 10 times harder, but flip resets are the perfect balance to where a lower ranked player might be able to do one, and then they can immediately compare themselves to players at the higher rank.
Oh my god, I'm basically a Vample at this point.
Flip resets are a really cool mechanic, but the connotations that come with saying, I just hit a cool flip reset, bring this down a ton. If a random player came in my Twitch chat and said, I just hit a cool flip reset, I can't help but have my first thought be like, oh, this guy is probably a gold player that just hit his first flip reset in training, and it probably looks something like this. So because it's such a really cool mechanic but has such a bad connotation, it kind of balances out. So I'll put this one at C tier. Okay, I'm sorry, but what? Why would you learn this? This has to be one of the hardest mechanics to do, but difficulty aside, this also has to be one of the dumbest looking mechanics I've ever seen. I recognize this takes an insane amount of skill, and I would never be able to do that, but it takes all the creativity out of mechanics, which is what I value the most. I would rather watch a diamond player do a basic, normal, clean double tap than watch someone try to get 20 resets in a row on a goal with no defender. I don't like it, okay? It's going in F tier. I know there are an insane amount of different types of flicks, but I decided to group them all together because I could honestly make an entire tier list on just flicks. With that being said, flicks in general are one of my favorite mechanics. There's nothing like getting a clean, powerful flick top corner that's just impossible for the defender to save. And the skill cap for flicks is like infinitely high. You just can't master them no matter how much you try, but at the same time, if you keep practicing, you will always be improving with them. So this one is going in A tier. Redirects are one of those mechanics that can be just so clean when you hit a nice one, and they can be done by almost any rank. I remember hitting this shot when I was platinum and thinking I was just insane. And looking back on it now, the only real difference between then to now for me is obviously consistency and power. Other than that, the fact that a normal redirect is just one touch makes it kind of hard to hit a really insane one. At the time, as a platinum, I would have considered this my best shot. But at this point, there are probably barely any Grand Champs or SSLs that consider a redirect to be their best shot, because you can't showcase that much skill with just one single touch on the ball. So I'll put this one at C tier because of it. The stall is probably the weirdest mechanic on this list. It's basically flipping without flipping, which kind of sounds like it makes no sense, but if you know what a stall is, you know exactly what I mean. It's performed by jumping in the air, and then you point your left stick in one direction and air roll in the other direction, and then you press jump again. What it does is cancel your vertical momentum the same way a flip does, but it doesn't rotate your car at all and doesn't change your horizontal momentum. I see very little use for this mechanic competitively. The only time I've used it in comp is when I mess up mechanically in the first place and I find myself directly underneath the ball. So while this is a pretty cool, unique mechanic, it's not that useful. I don't hate it, but it's nothing crazy. So for that reason, it's going in D tier. My thoughts on ceiling shots are kind of a mixture of what I said about flip resets and redirects. Ceiling shots are very glorified by the lower ranks because it's seen as a super advanced mechanic, even though it's actually not that hard to do. Again, I hit this shot that you're seeing on screen now when I was just a platinum, and I hit like 8 others just like it. And at the same time, for a clean normal ceiling shot, you can only make it look so cool. Most ceiling shots I do look exactly the same. The only way you can make a ceiling shot look extra cool is if you combine it with other mechanics, like a double tap or another flip reset or something like that. And even then, it's not usually the ceiling shot itself that makes it difficult. It's whatever comes after it. So I'll put this one in D tier. Honestly, when the speed flip was first getting popular, I thought it was so cool. I practiced it a ton, and at this point, I do it all the time when I'm just flipping around the field. It's part of my muscle memory. I get so many people asking me to make a tutorial on it, but I always say no because 1, it would be like a 4-minute video, and 2, I don't have anything special to say about it or any special way of explaining it. I'd just be explaining the exact same thing in the exact same way that so many others already have. There's not really a point in adding my video to the giant pool of videos that have already been created if it's just repeating information. But anyway, this mechanic is something that I do like 10 plus times a game, and I really do like it. And because of that, this is going in B tier. This is a highly underrated mechanic for real. I consider a clean double tap to be the most satisfying thing to watch and do in Rocket League. More satisfying than a flip reset, more satisfying than a musty flick, even more than this, despite it being way harder to do. The possibility for creativity in this shot, while also being extremely useful competitively, just makes it the absolute perfect balance of a mechanic. This right here is what Rocket League is all about. Skill, creativity, and fast thinking all coming together for something that's just so beautiful. I have to put this in S tier. There's no question. This might be a rare opinion, but I really don't think pinch goals are all that great. Sure, they're pretty cool to see, but they are all literally exactly the same. This is the same as this, this is the same as this, this is the same as this. Do you see my point? The only difference between some of them is wherever you're pinching it from, like the wall or ground or ceiling. A pinch is a pinch. There's not much room for creativity, really. On top of that, it's one of the few mechanics that no matter how good you are at it, most of the time, it just isn't possible to get completely consistent. If you do it right, you can at least guarantee that you'll get some amount of power every single time. But as for these types of pinches, where it's just a complete laser beam, most of the time, that's entirely out of your control. Even the best pinchers in the world can't even come close to getting it consistent. It's just a hit or miss, and I think it's going to be that way forever. I don't see anyone mastering it to the point where they can do this every single time. And even when it does laser right at the net, it just looks exactly the same as the one before. And that's why I'm putting this one in E tier. This might be the most controversial thing on this list. There's a lot of people out there that love demos and a lot that hate them. And I'll tell you right now that if you hate them, then you're bad. Chances are, if someone is chasing you around all game, that team's rotations are going to be way off. So if you're trying to make the argument that demos take no skill and that your opponent shouldn't be trying to demo you, then go ahead and beat them. Go ahead, prove that it's a bad strategy and just beat them. If you're going to flame someone for trying to demo you, you better be winning the game. Because if you're not, clearly the demo strategy is working and you have no room to criticize them. If it were really that easy to just chase someone down, you would do it yourself and win every game. So with all this in mind, I am a fan of bumps and demos, so I'll put this at B tier. Power shots are up there with flicks. It's one simple mechanic that happens in a single moment, but that feeling when you laser at top corner from long range is something else. My favorite type of power shot is when there's someone there defending the net in a perfect position, but you just shoot it so perfectly and fast anyway that there's literally nothing they can do to save it. It also has an insanely high skill cap that no one has even come close to hitting. Even pros can only hit this shot top corner like half the time at best. But at the same time, a lot of people can do it even if it takes a bunch of tries. The difference that separates the good players from the best is how precisely and how often you can do it, which in this case, I think is a great thing. So I'll put this right up there with flicks at A tier. Oh my gosh, like, why are there so many good mechanics in this game? I wish I could put all these at S tier, but that would pretty much make this entire list meaningless. It just kind of shows you how amazing of a game this really is. Passing is one of my favorite aspects of Rocket League. The ability to just have that intuition and know exactly where your teammate is and give them a laser pass is one of the biggest reasons why I love this game. It's why it still feels fresh even after thousands of hours of playing it. You practice shooting, car control, ball control, and positioning so much throughout your time playing, and then when you finally get good enough to where you can pass consistently after thousands of hours, it's an entire new avenue that you haven't even explored yet. And when you finally get to showcase all your skills through one single mechanic that just makes it look so effortless, it's just that much more satisfying. So with all this in mind, I am going to put this at S tier because it absolutely deserves it. This is pretty basic. Fast aerials are really just a Rocket League fundamental, so it had to be on this list, but just a normal clean fast aerial really isn't all that special. It can look really clean, but it's hard to make it a highlight reel shot. So this one's going in D tier. If you saw my 5 mechanics that will become the meta video, you already know exactly what this is and why it's so amazing. The drop down catch is where the ball is flying toward you in the air and you drop it down by hitting it softly with your wheels, and you use that backward leaning momentum that you got from the ball to recover insanely fast so you can just catch it and do whatever you want with it. When you do get it right, it's extremely satisfying because you're immediately in control of whatever you want to do with it. And it's also way harder than it looks. A lot of you guys watching this right now are probably like, yeah, I do that on accident all the time. But the difference between you doing it on accident and a pro doing it on purpose is that you probably can't actually recover and pull off a nasty dribble play immediately after. And yes, that's me pulling off that play you're seeing. And yes, this is a flex. And yes, I'm putting this one in A tier. And yes, we're moving on to the next mechanic. So to be honest, I can't even remember the last time I saved a replay of a cool save. I think the last time I saved a replay of a save at all was this right here. And clearly, that's not a highlight reel. That's me genuinely being confused as to why that happened. And even after checking the replay, I clearly still didn't get that answer. But the point is, I really don't care about saves. Even when I get a really close one, I don't save the replay. So I'm putting this one in E tier. Wave dashes are pretty similar to the speed flip in that they're something that you use all the time in game and aren't a specific type of shot. Only difference in how I feel about them is that wave dashes are far less satisfying to do. To me, it feels great to do a speed flip and instantly get a ton of momentum. But with wave dashes, it's not really as satisfying because it's not nearly as powerful. So I'm putting this one in C tier. Now, preflips are extremely satisfying, let me tell you. I usually do at least a couple preflips a game, not just because I want to, but it's actually really useful with low boost when you're just trying to get a final touch off an aerial off the wall or when you're trying to dunk someone. But where it's most satisfying is when you cancel your flip and then uncancel to get that little extra power to fling the ball where you want. I do this all the time on passes to the midfield when I'm low on boost. It's really useful and really satisfying at the same time, even if you're not using it to score a goal. And because of that, it's going in B tier. And last but not least, we've got open nets. Actually, no, this is actually least. I take it back. You know why I hate open nets so much? There's nothing to gain. You can never look good in a play where you're just given an open net shot. If you score it, that's what was expected of you, so there's no feeling of reward. And if you miss it, well, you might as well have just lost the entire game because now your solo queue teammates are just going to throw and vote to forfeit for you. So yeah, I think we can all agree on this one. F tier. This is the worst. So what do you think? Did you enjoy my list? If you disagree, feel free to leave a comment about it if you want to look like this guy. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you later.